Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to hit that like button to subscribe for more quality content from Phoenix and to share with your friends. I also encourage you to check out the playlist tab, which has more videos that you can check out as well and enjoy. I'm very excited because today I'm going to talk about Aristotle. So I welcome you back to my Philosopher series, and I'm very excited because today I'm going to talk about Aristotle's logical treatises and his system of logic. Now, Aristotle is very interesting. He has many books that he's written on a variety of topics, themes, and genres, even, so to speak. He's talked about science, he's talked about ethics, he's talked about politics, he's talked about metaphysics, he's gone into many different things, but he has also, obviously, as a philosopher, talked about logic. And I'm going to talk about his organon today, which I'm very excited to do. Aristotle's organon is a collection of logical treatises, and it includes many books, such as the Categories, as well as other books that he has written. And it is in these books that he starts to lay down the foundation of logic and what logic means. In philosophy, one of the most important, I would say, techniques or tools of the trade is being aware of premises that follow, being aware of premises that follow to the conclusions. And this is very important because often when we listen to people talk, when people express ideas, there is sometimes a disconnect or a disjunction there where the premises that they employ and that they present do not follow. And so one of the tightest things that you can do with a logical argument is to test for the kind of validity of the claims, and you can do that by seeing if the premises actually follow. If A leads to B, which leads to C, is probably the simplest way of describing it. And Aristotle was one of the first philosophers, if not the first philosopher, to lay this down, so that way we have an understanding of what this means. So it's very important when you listen to arguments to see if the premises support the conclusion, if A equals B, which equals C, and if A equals C. So you definitely have to look for those kinds of things. And this is one of the rules or tools that is often described to make your argument sharper and more coherent. Now, there are two concepts in philosophy. There is a priori and a posteriori, and Aristotle has written about both of those as well. A priori is defined as what could be described as armchair philosophy or armchair reasoning, where you are able to come up with conclusions strictly from the armchair, so to speak, strictly from thought. While a posteriori is considered relevant to things that we experience in the world, experiences that we have that help us come to certain conclusions. A good example for a priori reasoning is in the reasoning of St. Anselm, specifically his ontological proof, which I hope to talk about later in the series. But basically, he is able to reach his proofs by strictly thinking about logic and strictly thinking inside of his mind. While with something like the British empiricists, as an example, which includes people like John Locke, you get a posteriori, where it is experience that helps us understand what is in the world and helps us understand what the world is and how we come to conclusions about the world and what we immediately see. So this is very important for the study of logic and the study of philosophy to have these two ideas distinct, and that is exactly what Aristotle focuses on. And I think that that's very important. So the two terms that could also go hand in hand with these ideas is deduction versus induction. Induction is based off things that we see in the world, evidence. So the best example for this is something like a black swan, where by induction we are able to see that there are white swans and that we are not seeing any black swans, and therefore there are no black swans. While deduction is something more relative to mathematical reasoning, where 1 + 1 = 2. That is deductive because it all takes place mentally, psychologically, and we can prove this out without having to look up anything in the, I would describe, material world, or by way of our own experiences. And it's crazy to think that Aristotle was a thinker who helped develop these ideas and who started these ideas and discovered these principles because it really influences how we do science, how we do philosophy, how we look at the world, and how we come to our conclusions about the world. The final thing that Aristotle helped to establish was his notion of universals versus particulars, which is a very complicated discussion in and of itself. But for example, in the categories, which Aristotle was talking about and was reading, and I was reading recently, he talks about how our goal is to try to understand broader topics and specifically broader universals or broader principles and claims. And so a universal is often the most broad way that you can go about an explanation for these things. And this is often at hand with particulars. So as an example, with the black swan example, we have the black swan, which we say doesn't exist because we see a white swan before us, and then taking the principle that there are white swans to say that there are no black swans is a universal, and it is a much larger principle. And so Aristotle helped to come up with these claims as well in his logic, and universals affect a lot of, thinking about universals affects philosophy a lot in a variety of ways. With the rejection of universals, or at least specific types of universals such as Plato's forms, you can come to the conclusion of nominalism as you get in postmodernism and with thinkers like Foucault. So there's definitely a lot that can be done. Now I will admit, Aristotle's logical treatises are very complicated, and I feel as though I have only scratched the surface of what his ideas convey. They are very technical, but I encourage you to check them out if you want to see the foundation of logic and to see how we talk about other concepts such as syllogisms and the varieties of ways in which we find whether and the ways in which we find if arguments are valid or not, if they are sound or not. And so I would describe this as being an interesting way of going about thinking about philosophy. And so I encourage you to check out his books. Anyway, I'm Phoenix, and that about covers it for now. Again, be sure to check out the playlist tab, as you can find more videos specifically in my Philosopher series, and I hope that you will check out my other videos. I'm Phoenix, and thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.